back. My name is Gina, and this is my little corner of the internet where I share with you what I am up to with regards to my knitting. Hopefully this episode will be a little bit shorter than my last one. I only have a few items to show you because I have 2 finished items and then only have a couple of more that I've actually made progress on. So let us jump right in with what I am wearing, which is also one of my finished objects. So this is the Shell Tea DK by, which I'm testing for Sophie of the Knit Purl Girl. And this is a pattern that already exists, but I'm not sure what changes she was making to it. I think maybe, I don't know if she changed the sleeve length or like, so there's a short sleeved option, or if she was remaking it in DK, but no, it had DK in the pattern name. I don't know. Something's different about this one. Like, it is a previously existing pattern that she's retesting. And it will be released on, well, I don't know when it'll be released. The test ends at the end of August for this. So let me stand up and show you. I can't really show you very well, but you can see the cute little details. So this is a 1x1 rib with then a little row of garter stitch in the contrast color, finished off with the Rook bind off. And that has been done on the arms, the neck, and then I've also done it on the hem down here. And there's nothing unusual about the back. I will put pictures up and so that you can see the full thing, since I can't really show it to you here. Let's see. So about this pattern, it is meant to fit bust circumference from, I'll give you the centimeters first, 75 to 155 centimeters, or 29.5 to 61 inch bust circumference. And it calls for a positive ease of 1.25 to 3.25 for the sort of first half of the size range, and then -1 to 1.25 for the sizes I through L, which is the larger end of the size range. And I knit the size F, which is supposed to be 42.75 inch actual bust. So that would be 2.75 inches of positive ease for my upper bust. I will tell you, I have not yet checked my finished gauge on this, or my overall dimension, so I don't know for sure that I did achieve that. I did get gauged. I mean, I don't know that I swatched, but I did check my gauge because I've used this yarn at this gauge before, and so I just used those same needles that I used before to get this gauge, and then I did double check to make sure that it was coming out correct, but that was when I was up here knitting in the flat. So yeah, I'm curious to see if my in the round gauge, which is down here once you get well, I guess it starts up here in the round, if that was on gauge or not. So I need to check that. Yeah, so it is knit. I guess I should tell you what yarn I used. I used Drops Belle, which is a DK weight cotton linen viscose blend. Extremely affordable. I really like how Drops Belle knits up. It feels really nice to wear. It can be annoying to work in that it can be a little bit splitty, and I definitely, for some reason, I mean, this is just basic stockinette, so you know, this was totally on me, and I guess maybe the yarn just is, it shows you that it's prone to the splittiness, but I kept having to ladder back down because I would notice that there was a loop that I had missed, that I had like split the yarn and not noticed it. And so I kept having to drop back down and then crochet hook that back up. I did that a number of times as I was working this. So if you work, like you can work solid, you can work stripes, whatever you want. Sophie's sample used 6 colors, a main color that's repeated throughout, and then 5 contrast colors. And so she gave the suggested yardage for those, and I wanted to do that. And so, yeah, so I have 5 colors here, and then my main color, which is just natural. I do not remember what all of these colors are. I remember this is moss green, and this one's zinc or mineral. I'm not sure which one, because the color names, when you find them, like sometimes they're in Danish and sometimes they're in English, but on the ball it actually just gives you a number. So yeah, like I said, moss green, mineral. I think this is jeans blue. It's the lighter blue color option, and this is, I want to say dandelion, but it like starts with a W, the Danish color, and this is one of the pinks. It's not the lightest pink, so I think it's like the medium pink, and it's like Altrosa or something is the Danish name. Yeah, and then this is natural. I thought I was using Purl on this, but I was not. It was natural. So yeah, I really like my finished garment. It was super simple to knit, very good knitting experience. It's knitted top down. It is a raglan construction, which you can see. You cast on stitches in the back and set up your raglan, and you work quite a ways, increasing in the back and around the raglan before you finally cast on some stitches in the front, and that builds the back up so that the T will sit nicely around your neck, lower in the front. But without having to work short rows. It allows you to work these stripes in pattern. If you were doing short rows, you would end up with, you wouldn't want to do short rows with your stripes back here. Like it would not look good. It wouldn't be right. But working flat in this way back and forth allows you to start your striping at the top. Yeah, so you just knit top down. It is a compound raglan, which is intended to give you a better fit, to increase more naturally the way our bodies do, rather than just increasing at all 4 raglan points all the way around. I'm trying to count in my head, is that right? No, there's like 8 raglan points. So instead of doing 8 increases every single round, sometimes you're just increasing front and back. Sometimes you might just be increasing the sleeves. There's alternating, increases for a compound raglan. I am getting a little bit of, I feel, bunching around my arms. Not bad, but I usually don't have terrible problems with raglan fits, even if they're not compound raglans. But I'll just trust the designers that it does give you a better fit in general to do the compound raglan. This is a little, like this yoke depth is a little bit short for me. I did it as the pattern specified. Like I said, I haven't checked my gauge since I blocked, and I don't remember how I was doing in terms of rows. So my row gauge might be off from Sophie's original. I'm not sure on that. But yeah, my yoke depth is a little bit short for me. A modification that I often do is lengthening the yoke depth. I like about a 9-inch depth in mine, and this is not that deep, and it's not digging into my armpit or anything. Like, it is comfortable. It's just, it looks a little higher to me than what I'm used to, and maybe that's where that bunching is coming from. Maybe it's just a little bit too short for me. I don't know. I'm not 100% sure what like causes those fit issues. You can see that wrinkling that I've got there in the arm. It's not enough to make me unhappy with the shirt though. It's totally fine. I found the pattern extremely doable. Like, this is a very, very easy, beginner friendly pattern. It is, you know, if you've worked a Knit Purl Girl pattern before, you are probably aware of this, but she has a tendency to, I would say, probably over explain things. She wants to explain things very, very thoroughly. And she does. So, there's a lot of words for what is a relatively simple pattern, because she actually doesn't even write in the stripe changes or anything. She just tells you, here's what the stripe pattern is, at the beginning. And so it's up to you to work those stripe changes. So I guess if you're a very beginner, and you weren't comfortable with doing that, this would probably not be the pattern for you if you wanted to work those stripes and didn't feel comfortable remembering how to do it. But I mean, it is very simple. There's no reason as a beginner you couldn't do it. Let's see what else to say. If you like a pattern that gives you stitch counts at every moment, because I know a lot of people do, this is a great pattern for you, because she does give you the stitch counts and then she even gives them to you again. Like I said, I feel like it's overwritten. Like, there are more words than there need to be. But I'm also not somebody who's like checking my stitch counts after every row of increases. And I know there are people that do that, and they count every time and they want that written in the pattern, so that they don't have to math it out. I just usually remember to check before I split for sleeves. That's the point at which I will count, if it's not in pattern, you know, one like this, because, you know, it is honestly, it's not a big deal if you get like a stitch or two off in something that's very basic. I didn't, like, my stitch counts were fine, but anyway, I'm not as much of a perfectionist as some people are. And so if you are a perfectionist and you want your hand held about all those stitch counts, this is great, because you will get them. Let's see. Oh, I will say that one thing I don't really understand is the beginning of round is here. Which is kind of a strange place to put it. Usually because the beginning of round in stripes, you can usually see it, right? You know, you have to, if you've worked stripes before, you have to take measures in order to keep your beginning of round from showing, because your stripes, you need to work jogless stripes in order to not make there be like a little jump every time you change colors. And I did the slip stitch method, which works pretty well. Like, I feel like it looks pretty good. The slip stitch method, you knit your first round as usual in your new color, and then the second round in your new color, you slip the first stitch and then knit on. And that just sort of pulls that first stitch so that it's down more level with the rest of the row. And then since you're changing your colors, you know, you're cutting your colors in here, because it's like, there's no way I'm carrying yellow all the way down here. I change my colors every round anyway. I carried my neutral color, but I did not carry the rest of them. Since you have all of those ends that you have to weave in, you can also do a little zhuzhing, to get your beginning of rounds to look better. And so I think it looks pretty good there. However, I don't understand this. We did not change the beginning of round. Like, I would have expected at this point that once we finish this, then let's move that beginning of round to the middle of the armpit. But we kept it at that raglan. So it just sits a little further forward, and you can definitely tell. So even though I was doing my slip stitches and, you know, weaving things in, even just weaving in ends would have left, you know, would have made it this stand out, like that something was going on there. And just if it was in the middle of your armpit, your arm is generally going to cover it, but it like sticks out. So if I make this again, or if I were queen of the world, if I were writing the pattern, I would move that would move the beginning of round to the armpit. And I don't think I just missed that, because there was discussion about moving the beginning of round, but it was just moving it like just a couple of stitches back from the front raglan to like the second raglan marker. Anyway, I don't know. I just thought that was a weird call. And somebody did actually, I saw it in the comments, because this is one of the tests where Sophie, you're just sort of working on your own, but you have access to the pattern on Canva. And then we were asked to leave notes there. And I saw that somebody had asked, like, why are we doing the beginning of round in the front? And she was like, you know, I experimented and I felt like it actually looked better in the front than anywhere else. And I think they asked why it didn't move back. And she again said, like, I felt like it looked better there. And she was like, of course you can do what you want. So I kind of wish I had, but oh well, it's fine. I mean, this is just a casual t-shirt, so it's fine. I did, as I'm sitting here talking, I remember that I made another little change, and that was to, I did a teeny touch of waist shaping. I just took out, 2 stitches on each side at the, at the side point. So I took out 4 stitches total, just right about, where my waist is. And if I had been thinking about it and like had left myself time to do it, I probably would have worked 2 sets of decreases. But I actually, I think it looks good. I'm not sure if you didn't know about it that you would notice that there was any waist shaping there, but it does give just a tiny bit of waist definition. So pretty happy with how that little thing turned out. That was just a little addition that I did. Let's see. Oh, so you had 2 neck or hem finishing options for this. One was just to do an applied I-cord. And that was in I guess you could do it in whatever color you wanted, but Sophie's was in a contrast color. And I just wasn't sure if I liked that. I decided I liked the version where, it was rib tipped with a little bit of contrast color. And I didn't realize looking from the pattern that this is what she'd done, but I think it's super cute. I already said, but you knit 1 by 1 rib, and then you do 1 garter row ridge, so a knit round and a purl round, and then you do the rook bind off, and it's really cute. It's just this really neat little kind of purl decorative edge, and I've never seen anybody do that before, or at least I've never done it on anything, and I really like that. I could definitely see myself using that again. I think it's really cute, and it is extremely easy. So the rook bind off is just it is a sewn bind off, but it's way easier than Italian. All you do is you sew through the first 3 stitches on your left needle, drop the end stitch off, turn around and sew through the next 3 stitches, drop the end stitch off, next 3. So every stitch is like you're passing through it 3 times. But it's super simple, super simple. So highly recommend that. I feel like I've done that particular bind off before on something where we were sewing into a purl stitch, and I really enjoyed that experience as well. I think that might have been maybe on the hearth side or something. I feel like it was a wool and pine design that I did that on. So yeah, so I really enjoyed working this. I started it on June 29th after my yarn had finally arrived and I was home. And I finished it on July 6th. So it just took right about a week. I did probably make more progress than I would have done on it because we actually, July 4th had another wind event, thunderstorms, wind events. Everybody's sort of municipal fireworks got canceled because there were pretty severe thunderstorms that popped up. And I actually have some footage, maybe I'll put it in at the end, of the lightning and stuff that was just going absolutely wild. Where we live is kind of on a hill, but it's also very flat. So we can see for miles off in the distance. And so we were seeing lots of other people's thunderstorm, lightning. Anyway, as people were also setting off lots and lots of fireworks. So that was on July 4th, the evening. Because of those thunderstorms, and we had some extreme wind again. There were 90-mile-an-hour plus winds, straight winds, and so lots of power lines like went down. Our area was not as hard hit as there are some other areas that have been out of power for several days, and had huge trees that were crashed on houses and power lines and everything. So anyway, it's been a little bit of a mess, but one of our telephone poles was completely broken, and apparently it was one that was bringing power to our neighborhood. So we were one of the lucky houses that we lost our power on the evening of the 4th. And we went one night and day without it. And then I had decided if it got to be 4 o'clock in the afternoon and our power was still not on, and we still didn't have any expected fixed date for that we were going to go to my mom's house. And so that deadline came and went. And so we decamped and drove a couple of hours and stayed with my mom overnight, because I could not bear the thought of another night of, it's the summertime. It's, it was 100 degrees on the 4th of July, and no AC, no fans, no nothing. And we also live in the country and we have well water. And so when our electricity goes out, we also lose our water. And you need water. So yeah, we went to her house where she had air conditioning and water, and had a nice time staying with her. And then the neighbors let us know that the electricity was restored in the middle of the night. So we were able to come home the next day and did a big refrigerator purge, because the refrigerator was pretty warm by the time we left. And I did move some refrigerator and freezer stuff to my mom's house temporarily to try to save it. But anyway, all of that story to tell you, I did not have my iPad, which I read most of my patterns on my iPad. Like, that's where I have my little good notes, my PDF document reader, and I mark things up in there. And this was the only pattern that I had where I was just working stockinette. And so I worked a lot on this one, when I would not necessarily have been working as diligently on just it. So it got a lot of attention on the 4th and the 5th, and I was able to get it knocked out. But I'm glad to have it done. So yes, one other thing I will mention about this is that I assume Sophie will update this once she gets people's information in. I've already left her a note about it because, just in case she wants to start working on that. But the pattern said that the main color would need 190 meters, and then we would need 145 meters of each of the contrast colors, which I thought sounded like not that much. Like, it seemed like that the number for the main color was a lot closer than I would expect it to be to the amount needed for the contrast colors, but I just trusted the pattern. And the drops Belle comes in 100, I had 120, no, drop spell comes in 120 meters to 50 grams. So each ball is 120 meters. So I was like, okay, so 2 balls is 240. 240, that should be plenty for the 190 that's required, even leaving some wiggle room knowing that this is a test pattern. So I just ordered the 2 balls. And then I ordered 2 balls of everything, because the 145 meters is a little bit more, right, than 1 ball of drop spell. So I figured I would need a full ball and then a little bit more. Well, turned out that I did not have enough of the natural. Like, I was getting really nervous because I was like, this does not look like it's going to be enough. I mean, I think I ran out of my first color like up here when that's all I had done. And so fortunately, I did have 2 balls of the natural color that I had bought last year for a movement tee I was going to make with it. And I had never gotten around to that. And And so I was really stressed because I was like, okay, they're going to be a different dye lot. They're a different year. But I did find it, and I don't know. I felt like it looked pretty much the same. I was kind of curious to see what it looked like on camera, because sometimes those kinds of things are more visible. My neckband and my hem and last stripe are in the, they're in the old ball of natural. So yeah, so that was a little frustrating. And then all of the contrast colors didn't even use a full ball. So they didn't even need 120. I mean, I wasn't even concerned about any of them. Even the colors that I use, like the blue, I think was probably the color that I used the most of, because I did blue contrast up here and on my hemband, and it really wasn't, you know, I have enough for another probably 2 stripes of the blue. I could do 2 body stripes in it. Yeah, so that was a little frustrating, and I was very, very glad that I had those 2 balls on hand. But now I have, you know, a ball of each of these plus some. So anybody have any ideas what I can do with 1 ball of a bunch of different colors? Yeah, I don't know. So anyway, I am glad to have that one done, and I will enjoy wearing it this summer. I've already worn it yesterday running around before I even got it blocked. So yeah. All right, and then the book club cardi is finally done. It has sleeves, it has a hem, it has a button band. Show you the back. Blocked. Yeah. Oh, it looks so pretty. So comfy. I wish you could feel it. It's so soft and squishy. So this is Woodland Tweed. No, Woodland. No, that's right. Woodland Tweed. Sorry, I'm confusing myself. Woodland Tweed in the colorway Thumper Heather. And I do not have a ball of it in here to tell you what it is, but I want to say it's 100% merino. It feels, it couldn't be 100% because of the tweed. But I don't think it has nylon in it. I think it is natural. It is not superwash, and it feels so squishy. I love it. I guess I'll move it up while I'm talking about it. So you can admire. Okay, so this one, unlike the Sheltie DK, was not knit in a week. It took me from January 10th to July 3rd. So I kind of wished I'd finished it on the 10th, because then that would have been a perfect 6 months. This, I'm sure that you know, this pattern is by Sari Nordlund. It goes from a finished bust circumference of 37.5 inches to 69 inches. And that's the finished. So that includes the intended ease of 8 inches. So it calls for 8 inches of positive ease. I knit the size 4, which is 49.25 inches. So that should be, I have not checked my finished dimensions or gauge or anything to see, but it does fit very oversized. So I think I probably achieved this. It should be about 9.25 inches of positive ease in my upper bust, and 3.25 inches of positive ease over my full bust. Let's see. Yeah, so I'm just like, the yarn was perfect. It was a dream to work with, no complaints. I feel like the pattern shows up really, really well. It's heavier than what the yarn that Sari used, because she used, I think, a sport weight plus a mohair. So hers would be lighter in weight, but I don't feel like this is like super duper heavy. and it blocked out so nice. I just hope, because it's so soft, I hope that it doesn't pill horribly. That's my big concern. Let's see, the pattern. So one of the well-known issues with this pattern is that it way underestimates the amount of yarn that you're going to use. And I don't know why, if people have known this since as soon as the pattern came out. Like, I guess, I don't know if testers, if that amount worked for them, or probably it's that Sari is one of those ones who only calls for like the yoke plus one sleeve to be finished, which doesn't give you an idea of how much yarn is used. But immediately after people started making this pattern, they were noting that it does not, like, the stated yardage is not going to be sufficient. And so I knew about that and ordered more than what I thought I was gonna need, and I had enough yarn, so that is good. What I don't understand is why, if she has not fixed that at this point, like, if people have said this is not enough, why has she not gone back and increased that so that, like, just like an errata, right? Like, why has the pattern not been updated? But it hasn't, I'm assuming, because yes, I needed more yarn than the pattern stated. So for my size, it said that I would need 1,170 yards, and I used 1,314. So that's why I'm guessing that she has never updated that, because I still needed quite a bit more yarn. So this was about 7.3 skeins of Woodland Tweed. So I had 8 balls, and I really didn't get that far into my first ball. I don't even think I used all of it, half of it, sorry. There are tons and tons and tons of notes from people who have made this on Ravelry. The shoulder pattern, let me get her down here. The shoulder pattern, like, really bugged a lot of people, that it doesn't meet up. Can you see that? It doesn't meet up. Honestly, that, it just really doesn't bother me. And so there are people, though, who have very kindly shared their notes on how to correct that. Like, they recharted that section in order to fix that, and they have shared that. So if you're making this and you want to fix that, you can. Again, not from Sari, but from, just a third party on Ravelry who has generously shared their notes. So you could spend hours reading through people's project notes on here. I did not do that. I did look at a few of those for what people had done on the button band, because I talked about this last time. I thought the instructions for the button band were a little bit weird, in that she said to use the same needle as you had used for the body and to pick up every stitch. And I was afraid that would create, like, too long of a button band. So I picked up most stitches. Just every once in a while I would skip a stitch, but it was not, like, I can't give you a specific number. It was close to most. It was most of the stitches. It was close to all of the stitches, but not quite all of them. But significantly, I did use my smaller needle. So I used the needle that I used for the hems and the cuffs, which I think was a size 3, and use that for my button band. I did not use my size 8 needle that I had been using for the body, or actually, I guess for the body I used a 7. I went up to a size 8 for the sleeves, and I'm really glad I did, because if my gauge had gotten smaller on the sleeves, it would have been bad. I think I was talking about last time that the sleeves were pretty tight. I think that's a common complaint about Sari's patterns in general, is that the sleeves are sometimes too small. If I had been thinking about it, like, I might have picked up stitches for the next size up, but as it turned out, they blocked out okay. So they feel all right, because I, moss stitch stretches quite a bit. So I was able to get plenty of width, and they don't feel, like, constricting on my arms. So the sleeves turned out fine. But yeah, like, I can't imagine working this button band in a size 7 needle. Because I feel like it turned out really good. Oh, and also, she calls for ending the button band with, she's just like, okay, work your last set of double knits, and then I'm expecting like instructions for how do we finish this off in the double knitting, and she's like, and bind off purlwise. So which you would be binding off just 16 stitches, because this is, you cast on 16 stitches for this button band, so there's 8 knit stitches on each side. And if you work them all in a row, like they're no longer you're no longer working double knitting, you're just working 16 stitches. So like they're gonna bow out a lot bigger, and like it just looked terrible. So I did what the pattern said first, and it looked bad. And like I said, I am not a perfectionist, but it looked like garbage. It was really bad. And like I was thinking, okay, I guess I can like flip that under and like whip stitch it down or something so it won't look as bad, but I mean it looked bad. But I just got online and like Googled like how do you finish off a double knit button band, and basically all you need to do is just Kitchener stitch those closed. You're double knitting to each other, and I did that and it looked very nice. So it doesn't quite, like this is the cast on edge. I can see, you guys are not gonna be able to see from there. I don't wanna get my thing off again and show you. The cast on edge doesn't look quite as nice as my cast off edge, because it's just like one nice smooth, you know, it just curls over, like there's no end. It's like what do you call those? Infinity pool is what it looks like on that side. But so I have no idea, like why wouldn't you write those instructions out? I mean, you don't even have to explain it. You can just say Kitchener stitch that closed and people can Google it and figure out. But to just say purl stitches, like bind off purlwise, like it looked so bad. So yeah. Overall, I thought that this pattern was pretty straightforward. There's actually, it's not that hard, like as far as cable knitting goes, because this pattern, like it's one chart all the way through. Like you do have different charts for the back where the shoulder shaping is, but it's still the same motif. So you get that motif memorized. You know, by the time you're down here in the body, it's very memorizable. And I still had my chart out, but it's really one of those where I'm just like checking in to make sure that I haven't gone completely off the rails. I'm not needing to stare at the chart in order to do the knitting. So that was nice, but it just gets, it's just long. So you start at the back, you cast on stitches up here and then knit down to where your sleeves are going to be. So like this is a panel, and then you come forward and pick up, oh, I can't get her on there. Pick up your stitches, actually you pick them up in the back, because this is like the European construction. So you pick them up back there and then knit them forward, and you knit one side and then you knit this side, and then you finally join them. And this is where I just lost all motivation once I got it joined, because the panels, when you're working it in panels, it's not too bad because you're just working like one chart repeat. But once you've got them all, you are working 4 chart repeats every round. And it's just a lot of stitches at my size, and it's gonna be even more stitches in those upper sizes. So it was long. I did time myself, and like each of these body rounds down here were like 11.5 minutes. And yeah, there's not really any rest rounds. I mean, you're not cabling and moving stitches in that way every round, but like, you know, you're going to be knitting and purling on every round and working in pattern. So it's just a lot. But I'm very glad to have it done. Oh, also, as you can see, I did not do the pockets. There were a lot of people had pocket issues as well. And I was just like, you know, I know I'm never going to actually be able to use those pockets. So we're not going to do it. Also, it would, you know, go towards yarn usage, and I was concerned about whether I was going to have enough yarn. So did not do the pockets, and I am totally fine with that. I am very, very glad to have her done. I'm not sure that these buttons will be staying I don't think they're like terrible. They're black. And I didn't have anything in my button stash that worked. And so I just went and got some, picked up some buttons that were good enough. Cause it's really hard. I don't know. I may look online and try to find some, or I don't know where you can buy buttons these days. Anyway, look around and see if I can find something else. I guess I could like go thrifting and look for, because I was envisioning like gray buttons that would blend better. So maybe I'll do that, go to the thrift store and see if I can find any garments that have buttons that would work on here. Oh, I did another change that I made was I used the petite knit double knit button band buttonhole so that you don't have to break your yarn. You work short rows to work your buttonholes rather than breaking your yarn. So that pattern, I mean that tutorial that I found was great, worked great. And I did the thing where you create like a little shank for your buttons. If you guys don't know what I'm talking about, you can ask, and if anybody needs it, I'll go find you like a tutorial or something where somebody's talking about it. But basically you create a shank with your thread so that your buttons aren't like set super duper close to the your sweater, so they have room. Can you see? Let's see. It's like standing off maybe a quarter of an inch there. And that is like, the idea is that gives it more room to move so that it's not like squishing the button band, and because when your button is set, like is smushed into the button band and there's no room in there, it like causes your button band to pull. And so I think that did help, but this is just, it's thick. So there's one of them that I think is still maybe a little too close. And might be causing it to pull a little bit. I think it's this, I don't know if it's this button or this button, but anyway, I hate doing buttons. It's like the worst part of cardigans. I hate trying to get buttons on. It's so finicky. But really glad to have this done. I am planning to enter this one into the state fair. They have a cardigan category, and I think this is probably the most impressive cardigan I have done this year. So I will enter it. Even though it does have some mistakes in it. One of, I don't know where it is, but somewhere on the whole thing, I started doing this cable, like you're supposed to do it every 4 rounds, and I started doing it every 2 rounds. So eventually I started marking when I was doing one, because I have such a hard time reading my knitting to see when I worked one. I'm just so bad at counting those. I don't know what it is. But anyway, so I use a little movable stitch marker to mark when I had done one. And then in one of these diamonds, I know I got off with my seed stitch. I don't know that I got off in a way that matters, like that was visible, but I was definitely like not following the chart. I was just working seed stitch on my own. So there are definitely some mistakes in there, but hopefully overall it will, it'll be good enough. Okay, so I only have 2 whips to show you. So this is the one that I got obsessed with on the 4th of July. This is the Kytice Vest that I am testing for Clara Pushin. Sorry, I do not know how to pronounce her name. And it is just, it is intense. Look at all of that stuff. You got lots of different stitches. This is some lace. This is the Rusamine. This is the first time I've ever done that. It has bobbles out the wazoo. We've got big bobbles over on the side, and then we've got like smaller bobbles. This was Clara's own stitch. She calls a wheat stitch, and then there's going to be some embroidery that is applied up here where these like cabley things are. And I think these are just all sorts of different, like, they're supposed to be different flowers. And I'm not sure what this is supposed to be. It kind of almost looks like a beehive or something to me, but probably maybe a leaf. Yeah. It is intense. The chart on it is, you have to take it line by line so that you don't get overwhelmed. So at first I was really frustrated with it because, in its current form, I don't know if Clara will change this or not, but like there's a lot of scrolling. Like you have to jump from one part to another, like the written instructions, and then you got to get in the chart. Anyway, there's a lot of scrolling. And it was frustrating. As I was working the chart, you know, I had to keep scrolling because the abbreviations were on a different page, like the explanation for the abbreviations. And then once I found that the abbreviations, sometimes they were stitches that I needed to see the instructions for how to work those. And so then I'd have to go like to a completely, like that was back at the beginning of the pattern. And so I was like copying and pasting different little snippets of information or entire pages and like putting them in. I would definitely recommend, if you ever work this, printing off the abbreviations and the stitch like explanations page so that you can have like that in paper sitting with you and not have to like flip back and forth. You can just look at if you're working it on a PDF program like me, you can look at it on there and then read the instructions off to the side rather than having to like scroll through your pattern. But once I got into it, I have really enjoyed it. So it's like food for your brain, or like a puzzle. Like there's just so much in there. Like I cannot think about anything else really while I'm looking at this chart, because I got to think about what I'm doing, and there's no rest rows. So like even when you're working back on the back side, you are still working cable crosses and things like that, and that really breaks my brain. I'm not the best with directions and stuff to start with, and so when I'm thinking about how do I make a left-leaning cable on the back side, it's confusing. And so it takes me a while. Again, like this is part of why I was like frustrated with it. Also, let's see, I was almost finished with the Rusamine section when I realized that I had just been going along and completely ignoring on the chart. There were these red lines around this section, and normally in a chart, like colored lines in the chart will indicate like a pattern repeat or something. And so I think my brain is just trying to ignore those. Like, okay, I get that's a pattern repeat, deal with that. That's absolutely not what it meant, because like this is not being repeated. I don't know why I didn't stop and go, what does those red lines mean? Well, it meant we were supposed to be working this wheat stitch here, which is something that Clara made up herself, this wheat stitch. And I was just working this as like a knit and purl, which is like what's going on behind there. Anyway, yeah, so that meant, so I had worked almost to here, and then that, like the start of that red section was back up here. So I had to rip from here to here out, like frog all of that. It was basically, I took it all the way back to like the beginning of the increase section on the arms. It was about 30 rows that I had to rip out. And I was kind of frustrated, but the second 30 rows went a lot faster, because at that point I had memorized the baubles. I knew the difference between the big baubles and the little baubles, and I knew what I was doing with pretty much everything. It was easier to work those cables on the wrong side and things like that, because I had just gotten used to it. So it really wasn't that bad. I'm glad I went back and, I wouldn't have a choice. I am testing it, so I need to do the stitches. But my little wheat stitches don't look the best. I will definitely probably be going back with some yarn and trying to help them out a little bit with some duplicate embroidery stitch type stuff. But I am really enjoying this. Got a little ways obviously further to go on it. It's just, this is what it looks like on the back because it's just reverse stockinette. And now that I have finished the top, basically the rest of the pattern is just going to be these like twisted stitches that will be like the stems, and they'll extend down until I get to the hem. So this is the front. So on the back, you can work exactly the same chart again. You can work a mirrored version of the chart, or if you're me, you can just work reverse stockinette. So that's all I'm doing. Let's see. You also, like, the instructions are, I mean, you're told you have the option, but in the instructions, she's like, gives you instructions to join it in the round. I have opted not to do that. So I am actually opting to knit something in panels and seam it, which is not like me at all. I'm a in the round all the way girl. But can you guess why I didn't want to knit this in the round? Why I would rather continue having to work this chart front and back? It's so that I am not having to knit, like, basically the entire thing would be knit in purl stitches, if, you know, except for the chart part. Like, that's the only thing that would not be purled, is the chart and then the little bit of knitting that you would be doing on your moss stitch. But if you knit in panels, you have, you know, like for this back, I have one row of purling on the right side, and then I get to do, you know, knitting on the back. And I can purl. I'm perfectly capable of purling, perfectly happy to purl. However, I purl a lot slower than I knit, and I would just rather knit if I could. So I will be seaming those up. I, like, as far as bust shaping, I didn't do any bust shaping on this, didn't do any bust shaping on this, and I am probably not doing anything on this because the place where I would do like horizontal bust darts would be up here, and it's in the middle of that pattern. Obviously I'm not messing with that. I guess I could have casted on more stitches here, but I'm not doing that. So I probably will need to work the front panel a little bit longer than what the pattern intends to be worked. And I think that the pattern intends for there to be a split hem on this one. And I think it intends for the front and back to be even, but split. So I may work my front a little bit longer and just let that split happen, so that my front has a little more length than the back does, since my front takes more length than the back. I don't know if that is making sense. And I don't even know if I'm gonna do that 100%. Like, I have not thought all the way through all of that, but I think that might work. Anyway, so I have been really enjoying that one, even though the pattern was a little bit frustrating to sort of get my head around. Like, it's just super engaging, like, once you get into it, especially when I was on my second 30 rows, because at that point I knew what I was doing. And I didn't find the Rusamine to be bad. Like, I don't know, it sounds a little scary. I don't know that it looks fantastic, but I think it looks like it's supposed to. All you do is you're just bringing 2 strands of yarn forward, and then, like, on the back you can't see it. Like it's just wrapped around the edge stitches. So it's this little section of reverse stockinette that you see there. Yeah, literally all you're doing is just laying this yarn across the front, and then you're knitting those stitches behind it, and then you move the yarn back to the back until you're ready to go back, and then you move it back. Anyway, and it just makes that little overlay. So yeah, I'll be interested to try it sometime with a contrast contrast color, because I think that's more often how you see it used. But that is going to let me knock off another square in my bingo card, which this was also on my bingo card. So I can mark that square off, but try a new technique was another square that I had created on the bingo card. So Rusamine will fill that void. And yeah, so I was working on that one on July 4th, like obsessively working on it. And then we lost electricity. And so I couldn't work on it anymore, which was frustrating. And that was when I started working on this one, in full force. Okay. So then my other whip, the Kytice Vest I'm knitting that in Lion Brand Fisherman's Wool. So it calls for a DK weight, but really you need like a worsted to heavy worsted in order to get the fabric density that she's looking for. Okay, so this is my other work in progress. This is the Interconnections Cowl, which is a test knit I am doing for Juliana Martin. And I am loving how this one is coming out. It's mosaic and girder. I'm loving these colors. So let's see, this is Knit Picks Hawthorne. This is the colorway Woodstock. And this is my contrast color. And then my main color is Skyline. And I think, like, I just love the way they're looking together. It looks kind of like a Monet. Whoops, sorry. Bump the tripod there. It looks kind of like a Monet, you know, water lilies type color scheme to me. So this is going to be a bandana cowl. These are always so confusing to me as we're knitting them. Like, how is this going to make a bandana shape? But I know, having worked the grid gambit before, like, trust the process, trust those instructions. It will eventually make a bandana cowl. So I think I just started a section of mosaic, and then I'm going to have another garter ridge section. And then once I finish that second garter ridge section, we will be moving into a section where we are not knitting increases. Right now I'm knitting increases on every right side row. So we're expanding, but then we're about to work straight for a while. And I'm actually not that far from being done. Let's see. I started this on size 5 needles, but then decided that this gauge was probably firmer than what I wanted it to be, and so I went up to size 6 needles. Hawthorne is a fingering weight sock yarn, but it's a heavy fingering weight, and so, like, I think to me it feels as heavy as every bit as heavy, or even more maybe, as what is the really fancy barber pole color changing yarn from Ritual Dye Works? I can't believe I can't remember it right now. You guys know what I'm talking about. You're probably screaming it at me. But that one is supposedly sport weight, and you get it, and I feel like it's way lighter than Hawthorne. So this pattern calls for sport weight, but I was like, I feel confident that Hawthorne has enough body and size that it will make a good cowl. So I'm really liking how that one is looking. Yeah, and it should be done very soon, I think. And I'm finding it very enjoyable to work. That pattern has had no mistakes. Everything is in perfect order. So I'm just flying through it. And yeah, so that one is going to release on August the 1st for Flock. Juliana is doing it with, in conjunction with an independent dyer. I don't remember who. I didn't write that down because I'm not using their yarn. But yeah, it should be out pretty shortly. I do, of course, have other whips going, but I have not made any progress on them, so I am not going to show those today. And I think that this has been plenty. Somehow I've managed to go for almost an hour, even with only 4 things to show you. But I am like, this has been 6 months in the making, right? So it needed a long discussion. Yeah, so, and actually, you know, Knitpicks, like one of their prompts this month for the Knitpicks ambassadors was Christmas in July. I'm doing something about that. And I'm like, you know, this is my Christmas in July. This is my Christmas present to myself. Like getting this done, since it's been on the bingo card and I've loved it since the pattern was first released, and it has been literally 6 months in the making. So happy to have that done. All right, I have chattered at you long enough. I will hop off of here. I hope you have been working on something that you love while I was nattering away, and I hope you have a great upcoming week and get lots of fun knitting. Bye! That was nice with the lightning strike behind the fireworks.
Over there is just continuous.
No, they got one of the flares. Oh, they got one over there too.
They have the pop rocks.
Oh, something big.
That was lightning.
That was not lightning. Oh,
That was lightning.
it's arcing. That's from over there. That's where the sound's coming from.